There was an anchorman and an anchorwoman who both looked like dolls, and they were bantering, annoyingly, in perky tones back and forth about it. Every time each of them would finish speaking, they would stare straight ahead and smile blankly at the camera, waiting for their turn to come again. "That's right, Jim," the woman began. "We are returning to our top story tonight. The famous serial killer who is responsible for several deaths and possibly several disappearances has been found dead in California's Petrified Forest in Calistoga from an apparent stab wound." The footage cut to the crime scene where the body had been found, but there was no video of the body or its removal. "That's right, Tina," Jim continued the train of thought. "Police have not yet released an actual number of people that have been murdered by one of the most heinous killers in recent history. Evidence is still being gathered at this time to link this murderer to each victim, and as you mentioned, the disappearances are still being investigated as well." "I hope they find those people soon and that they are okay," Tina said. Me too. I'm sure their families are very concerned and anxiously awaiting the news of their loved ones," Jim added. "Let's hope it's good news." "We'll keep our fingers crossed." "Anyway, Jim, there are still no photos available to the public of the man who has supposedly committed these awful crimes. There are, however, the police sketches from some of the victims, and they are consistent. There are rumored reports that the man is very disfigured. Of course, that corroborates with the previous reports from the few survivors who were lucky enough not to have lost their lives in their encounter with this man. I wonder just how lucky they feel." "Good point, Jim." "You're right about the rumored reports of the disfigurement, Tina, but there are a couple more aspects that are of great interest about how the killer met his end. The first question is, who killed this man? The man was killed very violently, we are told, by being stabbed through the eye with a stick." Tina made an expression of disgust and shivered. "There are plenty of people out there who are probably glad that he is dead and would like to thank the person responsible, but there is still some suspicion about them for committing a murder of their own, even maybe with the best intentions, and then fleeing the scene. That, of course, is a felony, and anyone with any information on who this person might be is urged to call the local authorities." "That's right, Jim. 2 wrongs don't make a right." "I guess so, Tina." Another aspect is a strange note that we have been discussing since our earlier broadcasts. It casts further suspicion on the person responsible for bringing the killer down. It indicates that they might not be very stable and could very well be dangerous themselves, so be careful before thinking too hard about congratulating this so-called hero. "Let's read the note again for our viewers, Jim." White typed letters appeared on the screen against a blue background. Tina very courteously read it for anyone who was visually impaired. Tina then said, "There is also a picture of what this associated demonic creature looks like. Police have released that also." The drawing was then put up on the screen. "If any of this gives any insight on who might have left this note and picture, again you are encouraged to contact local officials." Spooky stuff there, isn't it, Tina? "It sure is, Jim. Halloween is still over a month away, but it seems like this horror story of demons and monster killers will get people in a scary mood early this year." "Ha ha ha, you're probably right, Tina." "Thanks, Jim." He stopped listening after that point. They were continuing with some more everyday news that was of no importance to him. That picture of one of the monsters that had periodically followed him throughout his life was what had made him turn up the news in the first place. Someone had drawn it and captured it perfectly. The information in the note was completely new to him. The killer, who was probably doing society a favor by thinning out the herd, was part of their bloodline. That could account for his deformity. The rumors about how monstrous the man looked had been flying around since the news of the murders had first popped up. He had thought those rumors had been exaggerated, like most rumors were, because of the grand nature of what he was doing, but there seemed to be some truth to it at last. There had to be. It was on the news. He wondered why he himself was not deformed. He thought he was quite the opposite, actually. That didn't seem to be the point, though. He had always wondered what the monsters were. They were demons. Maybe that meant there was a hell after all. They were coming to kill off their lineage. That was the word that was used in the note. They had come to him and his mother before. They had been coming more frequently in the past few weeks. He was keeping them at bay, as he always had. His mother had done so too. They had been the only ones who didn't think each other were crazy. That was changing. The whole world would see it was real. He wished his mother were alive to see the world get their nose rubbed in the reality of it all. He was, like she was, part of some royal, demonic bloodline that was coming to take its children home, wherever or whatever home was. He already knew to keep the lights on. They hated that. He had hated them. They scared him to his core, but he was beginning to respect them. They were not just monsters. They were on a divine mission. The note said they were called Kosianth demons. He had written that word down. He didn't have a computer, so he couldn't look up any more information on them, but he didn't really need to. He had no need for a computer. He had lived with those creatures his whole life. He really was special. It wasn't just about his looks or his ability to be a masterful liar. Boy, he could spin a good one, especially around some bimbo's head when he needed a place to crash. He was more than human. He was part demon. That's what the news said the demons came to you for. He was part of a demonic family that was on a quest. He would help them with that quest. He would have a great purpose in their cause. He would be special, even to them. He would show them that he wasn't like all those other rat racers out there. His meddling offspring was not just a nuisance to him anymore, but a whole demon underworld wanted them. Good riddance to them. They had only brought hardship right from the beginning. He had tried to do the family thing, but it hadn't worked out. In fact, it had blown up in his face and gotten him damn near killed. That was where things really began to go wrong. He would fix it all, though. He would fix them. He took another swig from the bottle. It was 2/3 empty. Why wait? It was a great idea. He would start right away. When great ideas came to him, they burned hard and bright, but they usually burned out just as quickly. He just knew he could have been a millionaire several times over if only he had acted on some of the gems he had thought up. He would not let that one get away. It was about more than money. It was about purpose. It was time to be the special person he was meant to be. Most of the lights were on in the apartment. The one in the living room, the one in the kitchen, and the one in the bathroom. The only ones not on were the bedroom light, since the door was closed, and the lamp by the sofa. He took another swig for some courage. He turned the lamp on and opened the bedroom door wide. Then he went around the apartment, turning off most of the other lights. He turned off the kitchen light and the bathroom light. He left the overhead on for the living room. The switch for it was just a few feet outside the bedroom door, which was near the entrance of the apartment. He quickly hurried back to the sofa to sit next to the security of the lamplight. The overhead and the lamp were the only lights left on. He then put himself in that state. He hadn't done it in years, but it came right back to him. He had considered putting himself in that state as one of the ways he could commit suicide, but he had gotten a much better reason for doing it, a reason to live. He sat completely relaxed on the sofa. He let every muscle go limp. The muscles in his face that he wasn't even usually aware of went slack. His mouth was slightly agape. He stared straight ahead at the bedroom entrance. It was dark in there, but he wasn't looking at the doorway. He wasn't looking at anything at all. His eyes slowly widened, and they began to water from the feeling. His flesh broke out in goosebumps all over. He felt his nipples hardening. He was putting himself out there. They were finding him again. He could feel them. He began to pant as the water in his eyes leaked down his cheeks. He heard the crackling sounds of them coming. He wiped his eyes. He didn't need to concentrate any more. They had already come. They were in there. He knew it. He felt it. His breath got short and fast, almost like panting. The feeling he had was creepy, but it was also powerful. He had summoned his kind. He was out of his trance state. He sat there on the sofa, afraid, but not as afraid as he had been of them before. He understood them. They had to know that. "I know you're in there," he said to the darkened bedroom that no longer felt empty. He sniffled from the watery snot that was trying to run out of his nose. "I know what you want. I know why you come." His voice deepened as he said, "I know who I am now." He was finding his strength. "My name is Dan Barton, and I am going to help you." Just as he finished speaking to them, a thick, dark green hand lazily came around the corner of the doorframe and into the living room. The hand trembled as its fingers blindly groped for the light switch.